This happens sometimes. I'm doing so much during the breaks that I forget the question I asked before the break. Maybe when we take a few calls, they can give us what that question was. But Victor Ostrowski is our guest. Thebookpatch.com is one of his websites. And we're here discussing the situation the world's in. Separately, you've got the whole North Korean peninsula with the U.S. aircraft carrier about to arrive. And I find it very curious that there's all these tensions rising globally as there's a world economic meltdown happening. And I go back to World War I and World War II. We always have wars when the planet is in a crisis. And I don't know if it's human instinct or if it's being orchestrated or what's happening, but looks like rough times are ahead. Victor, what's your take on the whole geopolitical landscape?
When you have problems economically, governments tend to go to war. I mean, it drowns out their failures and puts the focus on something more dangerous. It's like they said that the biggest solution to all economic problems would be aliens if they arrived, because then we would unite. Things can be solved in simple terms, but politicians have a problem that they have short-term elections. And they have to get reelected again.
Well, you brought that up during a break. There's a lot of scandals in Israel right now. Maybe Netanyahu knew this would blow up, but it would have a way of unifying Israelis and is a good smokescreen.
Well, I think he's got a big problem with trying to solve the situation in the Middle East. I mean, when you have one of the chief heads of the American military go in front of Congress and say that every time an Israeli soldier shoots a Palestinian kid, 5 more people join Al-Qaeda and shoot at American soldiers in Afghanistan. And he tied the things together, which are to be tied. I mean, one does relate to the other. I mean, we're all, so to speak, fighting the same war against terror. And as we're fighting it, we're creating situations that allow people to be recruited into that world. So, and we have to remember things from history. I mean, people are saying, we have people that are Americans that have joined Al-Qaeda, and they're all so surprised. But don't forget, you had British heads of the intelligence who turned sides and joined the Soviets. So,
Yeah, but you also had British commandos who helped set up the State of Israel as well.
That's correct. And so did American soldiers that were there. And
but expanding on that, if you have 1,000 Predator drones killing people indiscriminately, don't even have to know what their name is because they have a gun in Afghanistan or Pakistan.
Easy.
That is going to create real terrorism.
Well, the thing is this. Here's the thing. We have created these monsters, so to speak, that we can't talk to them. And if you can't talk to them, then you have to kill them. And they're saying, well, if you have to kill me, I'm going to fight back. On the other hand, if you create a dialogue and you open a window and you say, wait a minute, let's not do it that way.
But the military-industrial complex wants war, wants a pretext, wants weapons sales, so it's only going to get worse.
Well, Eisenhower threatened against that. He warned us against that. He said at the time, beware of the military-industrial complex. And there is one, for example, in Israel. I know that for a fact. The Israeli military wants to try new weapons. They want to try new equipment. They want to make sure that things are happening. And that's why Mossad is part of that same game, saying, we need to develop things so we can protect ourselves.
All right, we're going to do just one more segment. We'll have you back soon. But we'll go to Free Patriot David George, a few others with quick questions for our guest. And then we'll definitely have him up sooner than, I don't know how many years. It might have been 8, 9 years. I forget. I just remember we've had Victor on before, and he remembers it as well. We'll be right back in 70 seconds. All right, final segment with Victor Ostrowski. We will continue with your phone calls into the final hour that we just kicked off. And I got a bunch of news on the BP oil spill, on the economy, on what's happening in China, North Korea. It's all coming up. But former Mossad case officer, and he's also a Navy commander, so uniquely qualified to speak about the flotilla fiasco. Victor Ostrowski is our guest for about another 5 minutes. Free Patriot in Ohio. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How you guys doing today?
We're doing good. Go ahead.
I have a question, and this is for mainly towards Victor. If Israel was attacked by other nations and threatened its existence, is it still possible for Israel to initiate the Samson option?
Well, Israel has a nuclear capability, and I don't think they consider that. The Samson option is kind of like a generality that is used, which is, we'll take them with us and we'll go. Israel has the capability of smaller nuclear weapons that can take out enemies that are trying to attack it without destroying itself. Nobody around in that area really has the kind of capability to compare. And and head of Mossad just said about a week ago that Iran's capability has been hampered, and their whole system is coming down anyway. So,
well, yeah, I mean, Iran's trying to have it enriched in Brazil, and then our own government's trying to block that. So, and I mean, that fixes it right there.
And Turkey, by the way.
Yeah,
Turkey and Brazil both offered to do that. So, kind of like. It's a strange thing, but yeah, they have the option. They have the military capability and the nuclear capability to do that, but I don't think it should be called the Samson option anymore because it's not a self-destructive element.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's talk to David in Florida. You're on the air with our guest. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, Alex, I have a question for Victor. You had a guest on the other day, Mr. Hart, and he was talking about the Mossad might be involved with the 9/11, and that was his theory. And I was wondering what Victor thought
Yeah,
of
the
that.
former BBC reporter, I had him on because he talked to engineers who said it was explosives, and we know the buildings were blown up. That's a separate issue. And then he was saying his theory is that al-Qaeda was going to do the attack and that Mossad knew about it, and because it did come out in our news that Mossad was shadowing them. But what's your take on that, Victor?
It's absolutely ridiculous. Israel as a whole, Mossad in particular, would never get involved in anything like that. The U.S. is an ally. We disagree on things. Israel disagrees with them, but never, ever, ever would Israel do that. And if anybody, this is, and again, like I said, I'm not the one defending Israel or whatever, but I can tell you that categorically, that knowing the people in the Mossad, knowing a lot of friends of mine who are still working there, that would not be done, ever. This is...
Well, here's my issue. Government staged terror, and Israel wanted us to go into the Middle East, but Dick Cheney was in control of the stand-down. The Pentagon, NORAD, CIA drills that day, and so I see these intelligence agencies all joined at the hip. So I know that governments are capable of anything. My whole issue is, and of course I question, I expose the entire 9/11 situation. That people who think Israel did the thing all by themselves.
No, I don't think Israel was involved at all. Period.
But what I'm saying is Israel couldn't run the attack, even if you believe that it is an inside job, which I do, Victor. I have the evidence. I'm saying Israel couldn't run the entire attack.
Well, Israel could not have been even involved. And that would be, Israel is an open society on that level, and they would have come out, and there is no basis for that. And I can tell you that Israel would never, ever do that.
But certainly you've heard all the accusations about Israel being involved.
I've heard so many things, about the kitchen sink on them. And I'm the first one to point out what they are involved in and what they're not from my personal knowledge. I can tell you that one thing I can guarantee with my life, and I would stake my life on that Israel had nothing to do with 9/11.
Well, you know what, sir? We've got a break. Do a few more minutes with us on the other side, because I'm going to finish up on this discussion with our guest, Victor Ostrowski. Stay with us.